Best player you've gone against? In college, it's been probably Caitlin, Aaliyah.
The sports world absolutely loves a feud. It thrives on the toxic idea that two queens cannot sit on the same throne, constantly pitting successful women against one another to drive clicks and engagement. For the last 3 years, the media machine has worked overtime to manufacture a bitter personal war between Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark. They pit the UConn prodigy against the Iowa sensation, analyzing every side, every tweet, and every stat line to find even the smallest traces of animosity. But just when the narrative of jealousy and bitterness reached its boiling point, something happened at the USA basketball training camp that shattered the entire storyline into a million pieces. The footage that leaked and the incredible interview that followed didn't just debunk the rivalry, it exposed a terrifying new reality for the rest of the basketball world. And the proof of this deception arrived from an unlikely source. It started with a few grainy clips hitting social media from the USA women's national team training camp. This camp brought together the absolute legends of the WNBA and the future stars of the sport in one gym. Everyone expected awkwardness. We're talking about Caitlin Clark, a rookie who has been physically targeted, face-guarded, and verbally dismissed by veterans for months, stepping onto the court with some of the very people who have publicly thrown shade at her. And then there's Paige Bueckers, the college superstar who many argued was overshadowed by the Clark mania during her injury rehabilitation. The stage was perfectly set for tension. The cameras were ready to capture the cold shoulders and the isolated drills, but that is not what happened. Instead, the world got a glimpse of basketball nirvana. The clips showed Paige and Caitlin not just coexisting, but thriving together. We saw them in the backcourt during scrimmage drills, and the chemistry was instantaneous. It was almost disturbing how easily they read each other's movements. You had Caitlin's logo range gravity stretching the defense to the breaking point, which instantly opened up, slashing lanes that Paige exploited with surgical precision. They were high-fiving, laughing, and communicating on a level that usually takes teammates years to develop. For the fans watching, it was a moment of sudden realization. The media wants them to be enemies, but they are actually the ultimate basketball soulmates. But the visual evidence was only the beginning. The real bombshell dropped when the microphones were turned on. This wasn't a quick soundbite caught while walking to the bus. This was Paige Bueckers sitting down and dissecting the game with a level of maturity that made the current WNBA discourse look childish. When asked about Caitlin, Paige didn't give the standard PR answer. She didn't just say she's great. She went into the details. She spoke about Caitlin's passing ability, a part of her game that often gets ignored because of the scoring records. Paige highlighted the court vision, the pace, and the sheer difficulty of what Caitlin is asked to do every single night. What stood out most was the tone of her voice. There was zero envy. There was no "I'm coming for her" spot energy. It was pure, unadulterated respect. Paige referred to Caitlin as a generational talent, explicitly acknowledging the insane pressure she carries. You have to understand the context here. Paige is a competitor. She wants to be number one, but she is secure enough in her own greatness to acknowledge someone else's without feeling threatened. In an era where players are subtly liking negative tweets about each other or taking passive-aggressive shots in post-game pressers, Paige's glowing endorsement was a breath of fresh air. It signaled to the world that the new guard of women's basketball operates differently. They aren't here to tear each other down. They are here to take over the world together. To truly grasp the weight of these words, you have to look at the hostile landscape Caitlin Clark has walked into. Since joining the WNBA, the reception from the old guard has been icy, to say the least. We've heard legends warn that reality is coming. We've seen pundits question the validity of her records. We've watched players deliver cheap shots away from the ball that looked more like frustration than basketball plays. There is a palpable sense of gatekeeping happening in the pros right now. The veterans seem annoyed by the media circus surrounding Clark, and that annoyance often bleeds onto the court in the form of hard fouls and physical play. This is where Paige completely flips the script. Technically, if anyone had a right to be jealous, it would be Paige Bueckers. Before injuries derailed her sophomore and junior seasons, Paige was the chosen one. She was the first freshman to ever win National Player of the Year. She was the face of the sport. Then, while she was rehabilitating her knee, Caitlin Clark ascended to God-tier status, breaking records and stealing the national spotlight. A lesser person would be bitter. A lesser person would look at Caitlin's Nike deal and the private jets and feel a type of way. But Paige, she didn't just handle it, she celebrated it. Her behavior at the USA camp proves that the resentment we see in the WNBA isn't about competition, it's about insecurity. And Paige Bueckers is not insecure. Let's step away from the drama for a second and talk about the basketball because the footage from that practice revealed a tactical nightmare for opposing teams. Why did they look so good together? It comes down to complementary skill sets. Caitlin Clark is a high-volume, high-usage creating engine. She needs the ball to dictate the offense, and she stretches the floor horizontally with her range. Paige, on the other hand, is the ultimate efficiency merchant. She operates in the mid-range, the paint, and off the ball, like a silent assassin. In the clips, when Caitlin brought the ball up, the defense panicked, stepping up to the logo to guard her. This left the lane wide open. Paige, with her high basketball IQ, recognized this instantly. She was cutting back door, flashing to the high post, and finding pockets of space that simply shouldn't exist. Caitlin, who is arguably the best passer in the world, found her every time. It was a symbiotic relationship. Caitlin creates the chaos. Paige exploits it. Seeing this in a Team USA setting made one thing very clear. The 2028 Olympics are going to be a horror movie for the rest of the world. If these two share a backcourt for 30 minutes a game, no country on earth has the perimeter defense to stop them. Paige's interview also touched on something darker, the physical toll. She made a point to mention how physical the game is at the pro level, acknowledging what Caitlin is going through. This was a subtle defense of her friend. While the media debates whether Caitlin is complaining about fouls, Paige validated the struggle. She knows the game. She sees the hits Caitlin is taking, the full-court presses, the hip checks, the double teams. By speaking on this, Paige is also preparing herself. She is projected to be the #1 pick in the 2025 draft. She knows that the same welcome to the league committee that is currently hazing Caitlin will be waiting for her next year. By aligning herself with Caitlin now, she is effectively forming a united front. She's saying, I see what you're doing to her, and I know you're going to try to do it to me. It's a power move. It shifts the narrative from rookies versus everybody to the future versus the past. And judging by the talent level we saw in that gym, the future is going to win. We can't ignore the history that makes this moment so sweet. Go back to the Final Four. UConn versus Iowa. That game was billed as the Clash of Titans. It ended in controversy with that offensive foul call on Aaliyah Edwards. But before that, it was a battle. Caitlin came out on top, ending UConn's season. In the aftermath, the internet was toxic. Fans of UConn claimed the game was rigged. Fans of Iowa claimed dominance. It would have been very easy for Paige to lean into that anger. Instead, even back then, she showed grace. But seeing them now, months removed from that emotional game, wearing the same USA colors, puts a definitive end to the fan wars. You can't be a Paige stan who hates Caitlin or a Caitlin stan who hates Paige when the players themselves are literally hyping each other up on camera. They are killing the toxicity of their own fan bases by showing unity. They are teaching the audience that you can compete for a championship one day and be teammates the next. It's a lesson in sportsmanship that many of the veterans criticizing them could learn from. You also can't talk about this without mentioning the third pillar of this generation, Angel Ree. The media dynamic is usually a triangle. They pit Angel against Caitlin, the villain versus the hero narrative. And then they place Paige off to the side as the unproatic favorite. But this interview disrupts that triangulation by publicly praising Caitlin. Paige disrupts the clicks. Usually the media relies on silence to interpret drama. If Paige says nothing, they write articles titled, "Does Paige secretly resent Caitlin?" By speaking out so loudly and clearly, Paige kills the clickbait. She forces the media to report the truth that the top talent respects the top talent. It isolates the actual haters. Now, if a player throws shade at Caitlin, they can't hide behind the excuse of everyone feels this way. No, everyone doesn't feel that way. Paige Bueckers, doesn't feel that way. And that makes the haters look even more bitter. There is also a massive business side to this friendship. Paige and Caitlin are the two most marketable assets in women's basketball history. We are talking about nil valuations in the millions shoe deals and global brand ambassadorships. Together they are an economy. When they collaborate, even just in a practice setting or an interview, they raise the value of the entire sport. They understand that a rising tide lifts all boats. If the WNBA grows because of Caitlin, Paige's rookie contract and endorsement deals will be bigger in 2025. If Paige brings the massive UConn fan base to the WNBA next year, the league's revenue sharing grows, benefiting Caitlin. They are smart enough to realize that a fabricated rivalry might sell a few newspapers today, but a genuine partnership sells the entire league for the next decade. They are playing the long game, while everyone else is playing checkers. Now, let's get into the speculation that this interview ignited. The WNBA is expanding. The Golden State Valkyries are coming online. There's a very real, albeit slim, possibility of roster shakeups. While Caitlin is locked into Indiana, the idea of these two eventually teaming up in the pros is the dream scenario that keeps executives awake at night. While it's unlikely they team up immediately in the WNBA due to the draft lottery, the connection they built at USA Basketball will fuel super team rumors for the rest of their careers. In the NBA, we saw LeBron and Wade team up after becoming friends at the Olympics. We saw Durant and Kyrie discuss teaming up during Team USA runs. This practice session was the seed being planted. Maybe not for 2025, but perhaps for 2028 or 2029. The interview showed that the personal relationship is already there. The seeds of the greatest backcourt in history have been sown. We have to give Paige her flowers for her mindset here. Remember, she has spent more time in rehab than on the court in the last 3 years. Watching Caitlin Clark go on a historic run while you are sitting on the sideline in a knee brace is mental torture. It breeds what-ifs. What if I didn't get hurt? Would I have the scoring record? Would I be the face of the league? For her to come out the other side of that trauma without a shred of bitterness is extraordinary. Her praise of Caitlin is actually a testament to her own self-confidence. She doesn't need to dim Caitlin's light to shine. She knows that when she steps onto the WNBA court next season, her game will speak for itself. She is praising Caitlin because real recognizes real, not because she is conceding defeat. In fact, listening closely to the interview, you hear a subtle confidence. When she talks about how hard the league is, she's implying, I'm ready for it, too. The media hates this interview. They hate it because it's wholesome. It's hard to sell respect. It's much easier to sell beef. You will notice that some major outlets barely covered Paige's comments or they buried them at the bottom of the news cycle. Why? Because it contradicts the catfight narrative they have been pushing for the WNBA. They want the girls to hate each other. They want the drama of reality TV. But Paige and Caitlin are refusing to play that role. They are athletes first, entertainers second. By focusing strictly on basketball in her interview, talking about reads, passes, and defense, Paige forced the conversation back to the sport. She refused to answer questions about feelings and instead gave answers about basketball. It was a media training masterclass. Please remember to like, subscribe, and enable all notifications if you have watched this far and found the video entertaining.